What's up guys, Shane from Fugatech 3D Printing, and today we're taking a look at the Weedo X40 version 2. Welcome back guys. So this again is the Weedo X40 version 2. Now version 1 apparently launched earlier in 2021 around April timeframe on Kickstarter, and then went out to the masses, and then version 2 came out sometime after that. I think version 2 was kind of like how the FT5 was, where they made kind of iteration changes, but it wasn't really anything big because the changes between this and version 1, I believe there's like 3. Not a whole lot of changes to make it a version 2, but it is what it is. They're calling it version 2. And we're going to talk about it today. So firstly, the specs. This is a 300 by 300 millimeter bed, and you can get up to 400 millimeters in the Z height. I don't know if you can get all of that Z height, only because the way that the extruders are, they are inside the build volume and they go underneath the top brace here. So once you get up so high, you will hit these extruders off of this brace. That's not good. I didn't mention before, but this is an IDEX machine. So what is an IDEX? So an IDEX is a dual extruder system. So you've got hot end number 1 here, you get hot end number 2 here. Well, actually this is 1, this is 2 on your perspective. And you can print with either one of them or both of them. So you can do dual color really well with an IDEX. So you don't have to worry about a purge block or anything like that, because the extruders are independent. You're not changing colors and trying to push and purge out the previous color, because it's not in there. It's in the other extruder. Very cool. I have wanted to play with one of these, honestly, for years. I had a company earlier this year say they wanted to send me one. It was JG Aurora. They never did. Sad face. But yeah, when this company reached out, I had to say yes, because I just wanted to try one so much. Now, these are both Bowden extruders. And you can see there's 2 extruders right here. Extruder 1, extruder 2. You've got 2 spool holders up top, so you can load your 2 colors. I haven't noticed any real issues with it being up top. It feels fairly stable. Would I do any really high-speed printing with spools on top? No. I would rather mount them probably down here on the backside, which I might end up doing eventually, just to get them off the top and more down to the frame. It also lowers the center of gravity down to the bottom, so if it does do any shaking, it's a little less noticeable. But I didn't notice any issues in here, but there is ghosting. And I believe that's just because I am printing faster than the firmware is set up for. I don't know the firmware. I'm guessing it's some flavor of Marlin with a custom UI on it. So yeah, there is ghosting in these prints. I will show you. I have a lot of prints done here, both some really cool dual color, single color, and whatnot. So it's pretty sweet. Now this printer is driven by independent Z-axis motors, so that's great. It has a flexible build sheet on its build surface, so it's nice because you can put something else on the back, but it comes with this Fugatech, and honestly this is one of the better Fugatechs that I have dealt with, honestly. It works really good. I haven't had anything like absolutely bury into the nozzle. I have been a little more careful with trying to with this one. But also, like, even if I get things a little bit too stuck, they generally come off pretty easy. If they don't, I can always grab one of my handy dandy 3D printing tools and easily be able to knock off a corner, and then it just comes right off. I don't see very much deterioration in the actual like Weedo logo on there. So, or Weedo, sorry, however they want to say it. So yeah, a little bit it's coming off, but I kind of expected that. But yeah, I mean, it holds well. I haven't had it lift at all. I've had maybe, you know, a couple dozen prints on this now, a couple hundred hours of printing, so maybe 250 hours, I guess, printing on this, so it works out pretty well so far. Now the hot ends, they're not fantastic. They work just fine for what I'm doing here, but they are those like great big giant aluminum blocks where the actual nozzle and throat are in there with a set screw, which is good and bad. It's good for this machine because you can set them, and there's a process to go through to set the height of your nozzle so that they are the same, and you're not going to have any issues where one's printing low and one's printing high. I did have that in the beginning, but I was able to fix that. This does have auto bed leveling, cool, so it's able to do that. I wish I could change it, but I don't know if Clipper can do IDEX, but that would be pretty cool to put on here. But it does do auto bed leveling, it does do the Z height. Some of the logic that they're using in it is a little bit weird, per se. Like when it does the Z height, it then goes all the way to the top and then comes back down. I'm guessing it's doing that because the Z axes are not actually independent, they're off of one driver. So it drives it all the way to the top, kind of crashes it so that it evens itself out and then comes back down. This does have a Wi-Fi camera, or a little Raspberry Pi ESP camera. It's pretty garbage, except for just seeing if your print is actually still printing or the printer is even on or not. That's about all it's good for. Nothing really else there. All of the X motors are only 28 millimeter stepper motors. The extruders are also, and then the Y axis is a humongous chunky 46 millimeter. So it's quite a big motor on there to move that bed. So yeah, it is using limit switches. There's no silent steppers in this. It's not as loud as some other printers that I'm working on right now, but it's definitely not as quiet as a Prusa or a Bear or anything that all my custom printers that I use in 2209s. It's not that quiet, but it's not bad. The power supply is rather loud. That's kind of to be expected in all these cheaper printers. I say cheaper, this is not cheaper, but they're using lower quality power supplies with loud fans in them, so it's kind of to be expected. Now for each of the extruders, they are using this pretty big, beefy ribbon cable on both sides. They are pre-wired. Assembling this took no time at all if you guys watched my live stream. I mean, probably realistically it was like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to get it assembled. Calibration is where we took some time. So, and with those ribbon cables, they do give you a spare in the box so that if something was to go wrong, you can replace it. Again, I think when you send things like this, you're kind of saying, we know it's going to fail, so here's one just in case. And then I don't know about buying spare parts for this. I'm assuming you can, but these also, I don't think these are anything special. They're just like 30-ish pin ribbon cables. So there's that. It does come with a spatula. It does come with some tools. It comes with spare bristles. I'll show you a close-up of those. Now those bristles are just to make sure that any oozing from these nozzles gets brushed off to the side of the printer and doesn't actually make it into the build volume area. Very cool. Keeps it clean, so you get 2 of those, a couple extra wires, and an extra limit switch came with it. That's pretty much the stats of it. It is also this weird 2-button configuration, so you actually have to flick the printer on and then press this power button. Odd, and then when the print finishes, the printer automatically shuts off. So that's cool. I know a lot of people like that. It's an Octoprint thing that you can set as well, but I personally don't really care. I don't care if my printers are on. Most of mine are on all the time, whether I'm using them or not. I'm too lazy to turn them off. But either way, that's a feature that it's doing. So calibration. I didn't calibrate this at first because I thought it was calibrated out of the box. So I printed 2 of these, the Flexi Fish that it's on the actual SD card, and they're fused every other link. So one extruder is printing too far to one side where the other one is. So they're not both using the same center point. You have to adjust that a little bit. And honestly, the adjustments are only like up to 3 millimeters. It's pretty small to do the adjustments. And there's different ways to do that. One way is to print a bunch of these blocks. So this is the 10-1, or there is a smaller 5-block version that you can print, and you're supposed to pick which one looks the best left and right, front and back. You're supposed to pick that. I couldn't actually get this to really work for me properly. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I mean, it prints off on purpose so that you can select which one looks the best. but I didn't find that. So I decided to ignore that because I'd done it again as well. And I went ahead and printed out this little 2-color one that they had on there. Now this one, you actually measure the difference. This one's also a lot faster to print. So by just using a pair of calipers and measuring the difference, how offset the layers are in either direction, and then you just make your adjustments in the firmware. It gives you the options on what to pick, and then it lines up perfectly, and then you're done. And then once I'd finished that, I was absolutely off to the races on dual color printing because, well, I guess not entirely. I did have a little bit of an issue where the right nozzle was a little bit higher than the left nozzle. Now after the first few layers, it doesn't matter. It pretty much makes up for it at that point, and it's all completely even. You can't even tell there's a problem. But it only really mattered when I was doing the dual mode, where I'm duplicating. So both of these extruders are doing the same thing together, printing 2 identical objects. And you can either do duplication or you can do mirror, which is, again, really cool, but this one was too high. So once I adjusted that, that then did work. Now that's a different story we'll talk about in a minute, but it did start working. So I was able to get a traffic cone done. I found this cool little T-Rex on, I think this is one of the Prusa printers, the Prusa defaults for an MMU. It worked out really well. And then I tried printing, well, I did print the Matter Hackers Astronaut. Was already on the SD card, and their normal size, he printed well. I tried printing him larger, and I had some weird skipping. This was the only time it happened on me, but it kind of, yeah, had some weird skipping issues. So I never tried that model again, and then I did have a filament run out issue. So the extruder was saying I was out of filament, but the reality was I wasn't, because both spools were still full. I'm like, what are you doing? There's still filament there, keep printing. So that's why this one failed, and then this one did the same thing. I then restarted it, and then it started printing weirdly, so I just stopped it right there. I don't think the resume function is really great on this printer, because I also had an issue with a later test. Actually, this one's from yesterday. This is one of the Make Anything locks, and ran out of the red that came with the printer and then just threw some of this Prusa Mint black on there, and it's off by about 1 millimeter to the side. I don't know why, but it is, and it's, I mean, it's not fine. It's just weird that it happened. I don't know. I did try their duplication mode, which they have this little deer on the SD card. The white one is, I don't know, somewhere the kids took it. But it basically, again, it prints 2 of these guys, 1 on each side. They came off, everything works. Tolerance on this printer is actually great. Let me grab that real quick. So Angus from Maker's Muse had a tolerance test, and I never could get that old one to work. It had the 5 cogs on it, and you'd have to turn those in order to get out the middle. Never get that to work with a lot of the printers, but he just released a new one called the Calibration Castle, and I printed one of the towers on here, and it goes all the way to the top and at 0.15 millimeter clearance, and it works great. There's no wobble at that point, but yeah, it is absolutely great there. It doesn't pop off, which means I'd be under extruding, so this thing is pretty spot on. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with how well it was able to handle his test. So I did a lot of single color prints. Vase mode works just fine. Again, asterisk on that, we'll talk about that in a minute. I had some other single color prints that I did. This is some custom things I made for some Alexa shelves. And then I made, this is Loyal Moses is posting about toys, and basically it's a farm set. And I printed out the little low poly crop duster and the tractor. That was cool. And again, tolerances being great, I was able to print out another one of the Make Anything lock puzzles with no issues at all. The key on top was a little stuck, but putting my flathead print removal tool under there, popping that up, and then again it worked out just fine, assuming you have a good first layer. And then I also printed out this absolutely fantastic dual color Sith Labor equipped with the blade. And yeah, it worked really, really well. I had issues with the blade model, was not the printer's fault, it's the modeler's fault. He made it really weird and you have to like super over extrude in order to get it even work properly. A little disappointed at that, but it looks absolutely flawless. This was a pretty long print. This was about 17 hours on here using, the gray is from Neat Filament, so that's from filament.ca, and the black is the Prusa Mint Galaxy Black, so it's got a little bit of that flaky niceness in there, so the sparklies. But yeah, this turned out absolutely great, works just fine. Tolerances again were great. It's a decent model for that, but it needed some work. Either way, it works out well. I mean, obviously this printer prints pretty well. And given those close-ups you guys saw, you will see on some of them, you'll see the ghosting that I'm talking about. So the accelerations are not quite tuned on this machine. That'd be great. I know the community is currently working on some community firmware, and I actually just installed yesterday version 1.20 on this machine. It came with version 1.16 on it, and I just installed version 1.20. It did change the UI a little bit, but it doesn't fix any of the issues with dual printing and things like that. Overall machine, not half bad. Could use some improvements here and there, but overall decent for its price point. And again, there's not many IDEXs on the market, and well, I never said the price. So this is $650 for version 1. I think version 2 they're just rolling right out now. Like again, it was like when you bought the FT5, when you bought it, you just bought the newer version. It was not more expensive. It's just like here's the newer version. The same with the way they did with the Prusa Mark III. Like they just incremented the changes. And again, the changes between this and Ver1 were not really anything to write home about. So it's not really nothing to really talk about, honestly. Let's talk software for this. It comes with a slicer called Wiibuilder, which is honestly utter garbage. It is horrid. But I mean, it's bad because like there's not even a vase mode in the printer, in that slicer. You can't do vase mode with that, so you can't dual print 2 vases at the same time. That slicer adds something to the G-code that currently the community right now, and I'm trying to help them, we're trying to decode out of there. What is that slicer adding that gives you in the middle a little dual button? When you select your print file, dual shows up, you hit that and you say, I want it to print duplication or mirrored, which is, again, it either flips it or it prints both of them at the exact same time. The only way to get that to work is using that slicer, which again is absolutely horrid. It looks like it was written in 2001. Like it is just honestly a very bad slicer. So I have found a community version of Prusa Slicer, and I've been working off of that to make my version. So I'm getting this to print a little bit faster than like its default configuration. So again, that's why I'm getting a little bit of the ghosting, but I'm getting decent prints at that speed. I'm able to get the dual color to work just fine, which just cannot get the duplication mode to work, which is really frustrating because that's kind of one of the really, I mean, aside from printing dual color with no purge here, it's really cool to be able to print 2 objects at once simultaneously because you don't have any of the stringing like between your objects, and you can do 2 different colors at one time, which is really cool. And you can do multiple things on the plate, you know, but as long as it only takes up half the build plate. So I'm hoping here in the future that we'll be able to crack that nut of being able to print in duplication mode and mirrored mode using Prusa Slicer or even Cura. But no one's gotten it to work outside of Wiibuilder yet. If you guys know how to do that, if you have any inkling to using IDEXs, please drop me a comment down below. I'd love to hear about that. So yeah, the software is pretty bad, and I'm just using Prusa Slicer, and mainly I want this for the 2 color prints because there's a lot of things I want to print in multiple colors, but whipping out the palette, because I have the Palette 2S Pro from Mosaic, that's a lot of setup. I mean, it's a lot of setup, and the slicing is honestly difficult to use Canvas and then send the objects to the Raspberry Pi controlling the printer and the palette, and then having all those colors set up. It has to splice all those colors together. Sometimes the splices don't work. It's a lot of work to be able to do just something in 2 colors. This is really, really quick and easy. So if you want to have like an Etsy shop and print things in 2 colors and actually have it printed in the same layer instead of doing the layering technique, then this is really, really great for that. And it's a lot cheaper than a lot of the other IDEX printers because they're well over $1,000. I know Joel got one from, I'll put the name here if I can remember what it was, but I think it was like $1,800 for that thing. And like the filament went inside of it, it was super wide, and it is a fantastic machine and it printed absolutely great. But you can buy 2 of these for that price. That also comes back down to how many, Creality Ender 3s you can buy for the price of a Prusa Mark 3S. Prusa Mark 3S has a lot more bells and whistles to it. It's a lot more finished and polished product. It has a lot smarter features to it, but it is twice the price, or sometimes 3 times the price of anything else on the market. So do with that what you will. But yeah, I am hopeful. I'm impressed with what this price point has produced for this IDEX machine. I'm hopeful that they will have more development on it and they'll continue to enhance it. Again, there's a few things that they need to tweak, and this could be really, really great. The filament runout sensors being odd, okay, that's not great. The camera, might as well just nix it because it's pretty useless unless you're going to throw a better webcam on there. I really don't find that to be useful. Using silent stepper drivers on this would be great. Having independent Z-axis that it can probe and auto adjust that would be great. And having a slicer that can actually do the duplication printing or work with, they know how to do it. It's in their slicer, but they won't say how they're doing it. And again, there's several people in the Facebook group that are trying to push the admin to say, what are you exactly doing? Share it with us so that we can do this with other slicers. Because Wiibuilder is just, again, it's garbage. It's a horrible program. But yeah, this will definitely be one of the staples here in my shop to be able to do dual color prints for gifts and all kinds of things. I cannot wait to just always have this somewhere that's not here in the middle of my shop so that I can be using it for what's intended purpose of dual color printing. So they do have an app called like Polo Print or something, and basically what you do is you scan the code that, not on the side of the printer that I was trying to do in the live stream, it's actually the code that shows on the screen, and that allows you to hook up to this via your Wi-Fi, and then you can monitor the print, and you apparently can print from it. I have not tried that because I have no reason to print from my phone. I print from my computer onto the SD card, so it's kind of really weird for me to try that. But you can, at least, if you're laying in bed, oh, what's my printer doing? And you can pull it up and look at that. So again, guess it's useful if you want to see if your printer is still going and you're out somewhere and it's like, oh, it's failing. You do have limited control over the printer, so you can stop the print if it is failing. So I guess that's kind of useful. But again, you cannot see any details with this camera. Even with all my lights on in here, it's not fantastic. So I hope I covered everything on the Weedo X40 version 2. If you guys have any other questions about this machine, please let me know down below. I will be printing with this, and again, I'm going to be keeping this in my shop to use frequently, honestly, because I'm super excited to use it. But let me know, and as I develop more things on this, if I end up putting Clipper on it or something like that, I will be sure to post things in my Discord. So there will be a link to the Discord down in the video description. You guys should come over there, join in on the fun. We talk about all kinds of things, and I'm sure we'll be able to help you if you need any help on anything, or if you just want to share your projects, join over there and show us. And that's it, guys. So make sure you guys subscribe, hit the bell icon. That way you get notifications when I do live streams or whenever I post a new video. Make sure you check out the links down below. There's some affiliate links down there for various things. Do all your shopping with those, and a little slice comes back to me so I can buy filament and all kinds of things. I just got my Ziltech shipment in so that I can buy filament and keep producing content for the channel. So thank you guys for joining in. Happy printing. I'll see y'all next time.